Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am back for another Slim Sports interview. And as always, I'm your host, Jay Slim. And joining me once again, back for round two on the podcast, a dominant defensive lineman that knows how to get through the O line and put the quarterback, the running back, whoever he comes into contact in the dirt. One of the shining stars from the TCU Horned Frogs in another winning season for that program. Ladies and gentlemen, 6'3" defensive tackle, Ansel Din-Mbuh. How's it going, big dog?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you for having me on as always. Much love. Much love, Jay.
Absolutely, man. Always excited to get you on. Definitely one of the best personalities I get on every year.
Appreciate that.
Positive atmosphere. I got to watch some of the interviews you did with TCU this past season. I'm
Yeah.
like, yep, that's exactly how it went with the Slim Sports podcast. Love the environment that you got to be a part of this past year back home where your family could come out to the games. And I
Yeah.
already know the accolades to your name, but the fans, viewers, some of them are just now tuning in, getting to learn your name for the first time. I'm going to tell them some of these accolades to your name to go along with it in a quick segment that I like to call Resume Rundown, where I'm going to show off a nice little graphic with all the accomplishments you've had. And got to start off with what we talked about last year, 2024 Pac-12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, leading that conference in sacks on that year. This year, you came in, made an immediate impact, and ended up leading TCU to another bowl game, and that was your second bowl game of your career. So you've been able to be a part of winning programs, dominate the line of scrimmage just like you always do. And you came into TCU under head coach Sonny Dykes, who in his first year at TCU, he led the Horned Frogs to the national championship game.
Yeah.
And I mean, 3 out of the last 4 years, they've won a bowl game of some kind. So obviously, a winning history. You're coming from Washington State, where you guys just went to a bowl game. You have a winning background. Talking real quick about this past season and how the winning cultures between yourself and this program seem to blend together.
Oh, I definitely winning is something that's very important to me. It's some obviously I feel like that drives everybody. Everybody wants to win. My freshman year at Wazoo, that was like my first time ever experiencing like a losing season. My first year at Wazoo, we lost 7 games in the year, and so it was like I felt like I wasn't really contributing and whatnot. So I just want to put that out there first that I guess like things didn't seem very bright in my opinion. And so it's like whenever I came back to Wazoo, it was a very like refreshing. It was like a new start. It felt like it was finally like, my turn to integrate a little bit more. And, I think that is what contributed to my performance. And, I like to thank us having, a winning team. We had other dudes in the building and whatnot, that wanted to win, that had winning mentalities. And so, we were 7-1, for leading up most of the year. And then, some internal stuff happened, kind of led to us declining. But, we had a really talented team. And it's like this year, same thing. Started off, 3-0, go to Arizona State. We're up a good amount, just didn't really finish the game. And then win next 2 games, play another game against, I think, maybe Iowa State. Didn't really finish the game. And so it's like, it's a lot of like little things that it's common themes, at kind of both schools, just doing the little things, the details, and just executing. It all comes down to executing. Whichever team executes more plays is typically going to win. Very few outliers in that, but if you execute, you're gonna win. And so, um, definitely, I would say execution. That's the biggest thing in these last 2 seasons, and not only me being successful, but just being on successful teams. Thankfully, being surrounded by successful individuals. But I think going into this year, it's got to be harped on even more. It's got to be like a very high emphasis, like doing things the right way, doing things like the small things, and believing that they're going to add up, and that in that moment, when that one play needs to be made, it's going to be able to be made because you did a little thing at this point. And so that's definitely, something that want to focus on, want to try and hopefully implement within our team's culture more, and hopefully other guys think that same way too. So
Hey, spoken like a true veteran player right there. Obviously, have that high IQ of knowing how to get better. And obviously, being a part of these winning programs helps with that IQ to develop the learning stage of young players like yourselves. And you yourself, you ended up coming in and taking on a role for this team where you were that grit and grind guy in the middle of that defensive line for a very veteran group on this TCU defense, from the D line to the linebackers to the defensive backs. There were a good chunk of players that came back from the 2024 season. You yourself, you're one of these fresh new pieces in that starting lineup where it's your first year there in the system. Talk to me real quick about your role throughout this season and how you were able to help the Horned Frogs to a 9-win season once again alongside a veteran group.
I like to think that I've kind of always been more mature for maybe like my age or classification. Since I stepped foot on a college campus, it's like no period where I was like, all right, you can really, slow down. It's always like this. I've been, it's a blessing in disguise that I'm very, I like to think, when things are chaotic, when adversity is, upon that, I can just go with that flow always. That's my type of flow. Because that's just kind of how it's always been. You got to be able to always go regardless of the circumstances. And so inside play, that front seven, stopping the run, being able to run the ball, that's a determining factor in winning and losing games. And so I feel like the more presence that you have on that D line, obviously we're seeing it in the playoffs right now. Miami's D line, they're the most disruptive people in the country. Texas Tech's D line, they were really good all of the year, and that's not always going to win you the game, as we saw this year. But at the same time, it's going to win you a lot of games. It's going to get you to where you need to be in that playoff position and whatnot. Where then when you get to that point, it's like, all right, what do we have to do to get those extra points, to scratch those extra points? You know what I'm saying? So I think D line play is truly essential. Not only just in the middle, but edges too, of course. But just
Mhm.
your front four. The better your front four is, the better your team is going to be in general. It's a very physically demanding thing. And so I like to think more times than not, the guys that are good, defensive end players, nose tackles, three technique players, they have a little bit of mentality to them. They're a little bit twisted, I like to think. And so, the more you can implement that into your team's mentality and identity, I feel like it spreads off to all the other groups and everyone can kind of adopt that.
Absolutely, man. And you mentioned before the 3-game win streak that you guys started on, beat North Carolina and Bill Belichick's debut in the college ranks, got a dub over him.
You know,
Abilene Christian, where you had a very strong performance, a sack and a half in game 2 of the year, and then ended up taking down SMU in that third of 3-game win streak. Talk to me real quick about those 3 games specifically for the team and for yourself. How would you say that those 3 games helped set the tone throughout the rest of the season?
I feel like those 3 games really helped set the tone because it put us on to a strong start. We kind of, boom, gun was fired, boom, we're all sprinting. Like we in first place, we feeling good, feeling fresh at the start of the season. North Carolina, that was a huge game, of course, Bill Belichick and stuff. So all that hype and everything, we prepped really well. We had really good preparation. We had a whole month of preparation for that game. Abilene Christian, they're a solid FCA squad. They came to our crib. I was thankful to just be able to go out there. Coach called up a great game. I was just able to go get free, make the plays I needed to make. And then SMU, that's rivalry game. Game was packed out. It was hot. I ain't gonna lie, it was like probably 100 degrees, but it was a great environment. We also had a great game plan that game. We executed very well. Eric McAllister, I mean, he was just doing video game nonsense. It was crazy. It was ill. And just stuff like that. Those first 3 games. We started off pretty much as hot as I feel like you could. It was very solid. We were doing very solid performances, playing very well.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, you made plays in those 3 games, plays throughout the rest of the season. And we're going to get into a segment that we got to do last season that I like to call Make That Play, where once again, I could show off some of the best highlights that you had throughout the year. And once again, I went through the film and I put together my list of what I felt like were your top 3 plays from this past season. But obviously, you're the one on the field doing what you do best. I'm just the fan in the stands.
I
What
feel
would you
you.
say was your best play from this past season?
What I think was my best play.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta go with West Virginia. West Virginia, I had a fourth down TFL, shut off the block. Came out free, made a nice little tackle. They were in the red zone too, so that was hype. That was definitely my favorite play. I think great atmosphere, great atmosphere. I love West Virginia. It was great.
I actually agree with you. That is in my top 3, but it's at number 3, powering past the O line got through the block attempt. And while the quarterback was trying to scramble, you ended up collapsing in on him as well as one of your teammates, brought him down to the ground. Big time sack there. Number two, I got to go with the 6 yard TFL you had against USC bowl game.
Oh
Very
yeah.
close knit game there going against the Trojans, nationally ranked opponent. The running back got a nice little handoff there, went lateral, went east to west. Teammate blocked off his path. You came in and he turned right into you and you just pulverized him into the ground. Big time
Oh
hit there
yeah.
for a 6 yard TFL. And then number one, I got to go with the 6 yard sack you had against Abilene Christian because you set them back big time there. Once again, powered through the block, and the quarterback tried to scramble, and you showed that elite athleticism with a big time diving sack to show, like, hey, I don't care how far you try to get.
Yeah, you know it.
I'm getting you one way or another. And obviously,
Yeah.
you do that a lot throughout the season. And this year, you had to adjust in this system. And we talked last time I had you on, your mindset of it's blackout mode. You're going to do whatever you got to do in order to get the guy with the rock. Talk
Yeah.
real quick about how you were able to improve even further this season, your first year with TCU with the Horned Frogs and their system, to where you could continue to grow and put up the numbers that you did.
No, yeah. I mean, I would definitely say there was times, where I was like, dang, this scheme not really for me. This not really, what I'm used to doing. Like, this is not the type of player I am. But, sometimes, you just gotta be selfless. You gotta do what's best for the team. You gotta understand why you're doing what you're doing. And there's a plan behind everything. Coach never just gonna have you do something just to do it. And towards the end of the year, I'll definitely say, mentality changed a lot. It was kind of, especially after the season, I would say, like after the last game, it kind of felt like just a reset again. It's like I'm saying, you have a couple of days off of football. To me, sometimes when I can just get 3 or 4 days away, that's all I need, and I'm good again. It's just like just that ability to kind of regroup. And when we came back, we started doing a lot of things differently in the D-line room, edges room. Started, running our games and differently, like running our games up front differently and whatnot, and just a little scheme adjustments here and there in the back half and the front half. And we went and played USC, and that was probably the most free I felt most of the year. And it's like I feel like in a lot of situations, I'm well off because I'm a very good reactor on the football field. I have very good like feel for things on the field. I thought you can see that in my film. Is that like sometimes I get caught in bad situations, but I'm really good at kind of feeling what's happening, just understand what's going on around me, and that helps me in some situations. But USC, it felt like we schemed them really well. Again, like I was saying, we had a lot of time to prepare, and it just felt like at some plays knew what they were doing before the play started, and the other plays, it's like even when you didn't expect, what was supposed to happen, you're just able to play fast, just able to dissect what's going on, and it was just a whole lot of fun. It felt like we were just flying around. It felt like we knew everything to a T. Everything was very sound. We were communicating very well, and so I'm very confident going into this last year. Second year in the system, you only are going to do better. And, that's kind of how I was at Wazoo. My freshman year, didn't really know the system all that great. I understood what I was doing, but I didn't know why I was doing it. And I like to say that's the same thing for, this year, essentially. I was learning a new scheme throughout the whole year. And, I will say at times, it's like sometimes you don't fully understand what's going on around you, but you know what yourself personally, I know what I'm supposed to do on display. But I don't know that the safety is coming to blitz in this B gap. So I have to, play this block a little bit different, whatnot. And so just this year, being blessed to be in a, position of being older and being able to like lead, younger guys and whatnot. I feel like I got a responsibility now that I got to be able to understand, the game a little bit more. I got to be able to watch that extra film when it's hard and whatnot and know what's going on around me because it will only make me a better football player. But, hopefully my teammates also. So.
Absolutely. And you yourself, you put up some good numbers this season, 24 total tackles, 6.5 TFLs with a great pair of sacks on the year. Abilene Christian game, you had that sack and a half there with 4 tackles. West Virginia, 4 tackles there with 1.5 TFLs. USC bowl game, 3 tackles, big time TFL there that we mentioned didn't make that play. And this defense holding multiple teams to very few rushing yards. Cincinnati had 115 for a very talented group there. SMU rivalry game held them to 94 rushing yards. UNC 50. West Virginia, you guys held them to 41 rushing yards as a team. able to just dominate left and right to where even your guys' defensive backs were able to come up and get big time TFLs. Talk to me real quick about this defense as a whole, and especially the run defense that made you guys so effective to go off and get these big time wins.
I like to think not only personally myself, but as a defense, we take a lot of pride in stopping the run. You got to stop the run before you can do anything else. And honestly, shoot, if there was a game where they ran the ball 90 times, I would love it. I would love it. I love it. I love the physicality. I love to shoot, play the run. I feel like pass rushing is a privilege. You got to earn the ability to pass rush. You got to get to third, second, and long. Those second and medium situations and whatnot. But you know that's football. I don't really know how else to put it. It's like, shoot, you want to play football? It's running the ball, it's blocking, and so I love it. And I feel like our defense, we all have that mentality of stopping the run, running the ball, and so we take a lot of pride in it. Definitely, when you stop the run, a lot of good things happen.
There you go, man. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, 12 out of your guys' 13 games on the season, defense allowed no more than 3 touchdown scores. And you guys ended up going 9-4 overall on the year, 5-4 in a very tough Big 12 conference this year. I mentioned that North Carolina win before, season opener, 48-14 win, put your foot on their throats. Ended up beating Houston 17-14, West Virginia 23-17, just allowing 2 scores each against both of those teams. And then USC, number 16 team in the country at the time, Alamo Bowl, 30-27 win there to wrap up the season. So obviously, absolutely incredible there. And I know these bowl game experiences are really elite for all of these players. I've had a lot of players on that have gone to these bowl games, talked about their experiences. You guys, I feel like you guys have a really good story to tell from this USC game where you guys were able to go and really battle and have this close-knit win against, 2 nationally ranked teams, yourselves and the Trojans. So talk to me real quick about that experience with the Alamo Bowl and the execution in order to go off and come out on top against USC.
Man, yeah, I would say, first, I don't understand, how anyone, no matter what bowl game it is, I don't see why you would never want to play in it. I feel like it's a disservice definitely to the players because what I experienced, at that bowl game, that's one of the best football experiences that I've ever had. And it's like our coaches, they told us leading up to the game, you're never going to forget, regardless win or loss, for different reasons, of course, but you go win a bowl game, like that's a great feeling. That's your last time with that group of guys, that group of seniors, like, and like to see like the confetti drop and all that, like, for a second you forget it's just the Alamo Bowl. You don't care. It's like just a feeling of like you there with your family, your friends, like all your close knit people. Seeing coach on the stage, you got the trophy and everything, you got the t-shirts, the hats, like, and just seeing like the fruition of the whole game and playing 5 quarters of football, like come through. And it's like every play, like no matter, we were down 10 in the fourth quarter. And, like every play, no matter what's going on, just like playing the next play, playing the next play. And, shoot, I'm going to be honest, we sitting there, it's 3rd and 20. I'm like, shoot, hopefully we can get, 6, 7 yards, kick a field goal. Shoot, we're going to have to go play again. But then, Jeremy Payne catches the ball, breaks a couple tackles, and I'm looking at the jumbotron. I'm not even watching on the field. I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at jumbotron. I'm just like, oh my goodness, did he just score? And I'm waiting for a flag to get thrown or some BS, to happen. And I'm just looking, and nothing's happened. I'm just like, we're still cheering, like, and I'm just like, wow, we just really did that. And Alamo Bowl, TCU, it's got a lot of history and stuff. And so to me, it just felt like, it was already written. That's it. That's that magic.
Absolutely, man. Loved seeing the TCU Horned Frogs come out on top in that bowl game. Obviously, you yourself with an incredible performance as well as the rest of your team. And I know you're a very teammate loving guy. We got to shout out some of your teammates last year when I had you on in this segment that we're about to get into once again that I like to call Who's Up Next, where you get to shout out some of your teammates. Last year, you shout out some of your teammates from Washington State. This year, let's hear some TCU names. Who would you say are some of these TCU Horned Frogs that deserve to have their names heard, get their stories out there, just as you're doing now? Next up on the Slim Sports Podcast.
Tristan Johnson, I'm definitely gonna say he plays D tackle number 35 here, and I like to think I'm a very hard worker. And it's like this dude, like he always gives tenfold to the game, and so I always like to think when you give everything to the game, it's always gonna give back. Receiver, I'm gonna do Jordan Dwyer. He just broke his foot recently at the end of this year, so we're hoping that he'll be able to come back next season. But he balled this year. He had 7 touchdowns, I think it was. He had probably almost 1,000 receiving yards. Marcus Deal, I play right next to him. Played right next to him most of the year, number 95. Great dude. Was playing on a torn meniscus, I think, or MCL all year. Literally, he's tore at fall camp, played on it all year, just got surgery. Literally, I think like a couple of days ago. Shout out the boy. But he's gonna get healed up. He's gonna be back for this year. But that's what I'm saying. You play on a torn knee all year, you can't. That's the most selfless thing you can do. Zach Chapman, he's an edge. We got. Love that dude to death. He's a great player. We call him the Reaper. Shout out Paul Iwale, number 97. Great player, great personality, good friend. Sure, I wish I could always shout out everybody, but those the first couple guys that come to my mind. Guys that are balling, guys that deserve some recognition, deserve some love. I feel like so.
Hey,
those-
absolutely, man. They are awesome dogs. I know you have a high level of IQ, so if you're recommending them, then I know for a fact there's some high level players just like yourself. You're
Yes,
looking
sir.
to continue that success for your career, both individually and as a team for TCU going into the 2026 season to hopefully not just lead them back to a bowl game, but hopefully maybe even back to the national playoffs. So we'll see what's in tune for the Horned Frogs going into next season. But talk me real quick about how you're really attacking this offseason to enter 2026, get back to being the top tier defensive lineman in your conference, and help TCU back to even more success.
One thing I would definitely say is like, shoot, it's my last year of college football, and I've been very blessed and fortunate. I played in 30 some games. I've started in probably close to 25 games. Uh, I know a lot of people that they've been in the same room as me. They've been in bigger rooms than me, and they ain't even make it this far. A lot of them got hurt. A lot of them had their personal issues, school, whatnot. Like, so one thing is that I'm just blessed to be where I'm at. I'm blessed to have done what I've done, and so I feel like I got one more opportunity. God willingly, it's like every day that I wake up, I really feel like shoot, I'm gonna just give everything I have, because I really feel like nothing's promised. Like, of course I'd love to get drafted, but nobody owes me that. Nobody is obligated to draft me or give me any type of leeway or anything. Like it's all earned. So I gotta go be the best version of myself every day. I gotta be the best football player I can be every day. I gotta realize every day is an interview, and if I really want to play in the NFL, then it's like, shoot, I'm gonna have to mature every day. I'm gonna have to kind of grow out of this shell of just being like, I always like you were saying, with veteran teams, I've always been on veteran teams, so I've always been fortunate, to not have to, I guess, be the guy that I guess leads necessarily, if that makes sense. Like I've always kind of like just been able to play good and not have to worry about, what everyone else kind of has going on in a sense. But I feel like, shoot, I'm a senior now. Like people are gonna be looking at me on how to do things. I know how to do things. I've been doing this for I guess a while now, a couple years, and so it's like just being a great example, being a great leader, and just really elevating every day, being the best version of myself because that's what it's gonna take. So that's what has to get done.
Hey, there you go, man. And I know you said that nobody's obligated to draft you. I
Exactly.
1000% believe that you will be in the NFL one day. Obviously, you got one more year at TCU to do what you do best, man. I cannot wait to see what you do in 2026 to absolutely dominate and earn your way into the NFL draft. Like I have been hyping you up to everybody when I mention you as a part of the Slim Sports family, man. Beyond blessed to once again have you on, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you, man. Thank you so much for once again hopping on the podcast.
You know what, Jay Slim? It's love always. I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot. Always glad to be on a podcast. Anytime, any opportunity I get, love to come on here, just talk ball, just speak my mind is great.